Well, do they still play football in the SEC? Regardless, we will continue to talk SEC football here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. This is our weekly SEC show, the appropriately named SEC live here at Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. We got David Waters from Gators Breakdown coming on. Just want to reiterate with everyone where we stand on this week's schedule. If this will cooperate here, Alabama, LSU, Auburn, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Tennessee, and Georgia, Missouri, a slew of games. Unlike anything we've ever seen, weather-related or otherwise, we would probably have to go back to World Wars, possibly to find another weekend impacted like this. We got David Waters from Gators Breakdown here to talk one of the three that will be played, Florida and Arkansas. David, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, Mark, man. How about you?
I'm good. So Gators coming off the huge win against Georgia. I'm sure you've had a whole lot of fun talking that one up. What is the general mood besides the typical elation over beating Georgia from the Florida fan base in pretty resounding fashion, getting down 14-0 and then roaring back for a 16-point win?
Yeah, roaring back, getting that big victory. You got control of the East now. So basically the message right now, Mark, is don't let up. You can't get too high after beating Georgia last week. You still got half your season left. 5 games now, more than likely 6 with the SEC championship game there. So, look, it won't be hard to get up for Arkansas. It shouldn't be. You got that big victory over Georgia, and look, you're going to get your former quarterback. I mean, so at least everybody on this Florida team right now knows Felipe Franks. They know him very well. He was a quarterback for this team. So, since 2017. So it's very interesting that when the SEC announced a new 10-game schedule, I wondered in the back of my mind, would this game be scheduled with Arkansas because of the Felipe Franks thing? And don't get me wrong, that's not why it was scheduled, but I was going to find it very interesting if they did schedule it because of the Felipe Franks storyline there. So, yeah, Mark, it mainly is, you got the big victory over Georgia. You just can't get too happy. You got to move on. And I don't think it'll be that hard to move on given that you're facing your former quarterback.
Well, it won't be a packed house, of course, at the Swamp, but still we'll get a little taste of whether there's been a lot of love lost between Gator fans and Felipe Franks. Of course, he had a love-hate relationship with the fan base down there during his time as a Gators quarterback. You certainly saw development with him under Dan Mullen that really underlines what Dan Mullen's all about and his capabilities. We could go through from his time as a coordinator onto Mississippi State on through, and we see Felipe Franks, and the number I'm going to throw at you is one that you know well: 9 TDs and 8 picks the year before Dan Mullen, and then 24-6 TD to pick ratio under Dan Mullen. So what did you see in Felipe Franks that I would think that he's carrying through in his stint with Arkansas?
Yeah, it is a lot of the same things. Has the big arm, but not asked to throw down the field a whole lot because he's not that accurate. He can throw it down there. Don't get me wrong. He can throw it 75, 80 yards. no problem. But, hitting somebody in that 75, 80 yards has been the issue. So it's still, a safe version of football. Arkansas likes to still run the ball, much like you go back 2 years ago with Florida. It was the Jordan Scarlett, the Michael Pirine show. And then as the season went on, Felipe Franks was asked to run the ball a bit more as well. Very instrumental in that comeback versus South Carolina that year after you were coming off of losses to Georgia and Missouri. And, Felipe Franks scored the touchdown that game, shushes the crowd, and some of the crowd was not too happy with that. Some understood why he did what he did at that point of his career. So, yeah, went on to win, 10 games and led Florida to a victory over Michigan in the Peach Bowl that year. Mark, the big thing is the coaching staff loved him and his teammates loved him, and that's really all that mattered. I mean, and he played. If he didn't have a good game, it wasn't because of his own fault of not trying. He gave all he had as a Gator. Most of the fan base hated to see him go, but understood why. Hated to see him go. Kind of the way it played out. You wish, it would have worked out better for him, but you understood that Kyle Trask was playing better. Kyle Trask was going to be the quarterback. There was no fault in Felipe Franks leaving the University of Florida. So but yeah, he's not asked to do a whole lot. I think he's a great leader. I think that's why Sam Pittman kind of, I won't say fell into luck of getting Felipe Franks, but I think it was a good idea to get a quarterback with so much SEC experience, and one that I think a team gravitates towards, and that's kind of the way Felipe Franks is. So I think his teammates play hard for him, and I think in one way of his play elevates everybody around him too, but I think it's more because he's such a gravitational type of personality on a team that I think everybody wants to go play for him. And I expect to see that Saturday as well.
And it's been fun watching Arkansas play. It's been fun watching their story unfold. They're not going to be competing for any championships or anything like that, but considering where they've been for the last 2 years, not even getting beat around by the SEC. But when you're in the SEC, and typically Vandy's the only one that delivers this, you can't step out of conference play and beat the group of 5 teams. And they had lost to the North Texases and Western Kentuckys and Colorado States and on down the line over the last several years. And they're a fun team to watch. They're letting it all hang out. They're having fun. So they're certainly not going to let down. They're coming off a nice win against Tennessee, down 2 scores in the first half. But going to the Swamp, the Gators coming back off their biggest win in years. The proverbial letdown scenario.
Yeah, it is in the back of your mind, but I think it's a good thing that they are playing Felipe Franks, because I do think it's a reason to get up for this game and not kind of let it just go by the wayside here. You know, kind of just even looking at Arkansas and kind of what they're doing. You mentioned a game versus Tennessee last week, down 13-0, and they come back there. It'd be interesting to see how they play this Gator offense with that Barry Odom-led defense, and he's going to be the interim coach. I mean, Sam Pittman's not going to be head coach in this game because he tested. I mean, that was the first big COVID story of the SEC week was Sunday. We get word Sam Pittman had tested positive, the Arkansas head coach, for COVID. And then a day later, it's confirmed again, and that he would not be the coach. So defensive coordinator and former Missouri head coach Barry Odom is going to step in. So does that affect the Missouri or the Arkansas defense versus Florida on Saturday? You know, this Florida offense is dealing right now. Kyle Trask is playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the country right now, lit up a really good Georgia defense. And Arkansas leads the country right now in 12 interceptions for us. So they're going to play a lot of zone and ask Kyle Trask to, you know, pick them apart if he can. And he's done that. I mean, pretty much, Mark, whatever defense you want to play versus Kyle Trask, he has proven that if man, zone, mix, blitz, whatever, it doesn't matter. He's proven that he can go beat it. But, you know, one reason Arkansas has those 12 interceptions, a lot of college football quarterbacks just can't sit there. They want to go for the big play a lot. They play a lot of zone. They don't give up big plays. They just let deep offenses dink and dunk around the field, and somebody gets impatient and they throw an interception. Well, Kyle Trask hasn't done that. He plays within that. He has no issue dinking and dunking and then letting the wide receiver break a tackle and then go for 50 yards, or if it plays out that way. So I will be interested to see if they, with 12 interceptions so far this season, if they can force Kyle Trask into one or two of those and make a closer game of it. But they also have, Arkansas has one of the worst run defenses in the country, one of the worst run defenses in the SEC. This might be the game we see the Florida run game kind of solidify itself. So played pretty good versus Georgia last week. When they needed a run, they got the run. And that was a big key for me last week in that previewing in that game with what Georgia was missing. Well, now they're playing a run defense that's not so great. So can you take a couple of young offensive linemen that got some playing time versus Georgia last week, insert them into this game, and then go run the ball versus one of the SEC's worst run defenses?
So the main narrative that we talked up last week leading into the Georgia game was, do the Bulldogs still have a significant or decided talent gap? I won't call it significant even 1 or 2 years ago, but decided talent gap. And will they push Florida around as they have bullied them along both sides of the football? Or will Florida's ability to make plays, their skill on offense, the trigger man being as good as he is, and Kyle Trask take over and lead to a victory? So we got our questions answered. Whether Florida's overtaken them in terms of talent or bulk or strength, we don't know that, but they're good enough. They're good enough, and they've overtaken them in regards to just running an offense with the guy that they've got, calling the plays and then also executing the plays on the field. So to you, what was the most impressive part of Florida's win?
Probably the big plays. There's been a lot of big plays for this Gator offense, but it was identifying one particular mismatch that you had, and you just abused it until, the game was pretty much out of hand. And that was the wheel route. I mean, it's not a staple of Dan Mullen's offense. This was not a play. This is not a play we see every week. This is not a play we even see once every now and then. But there was something Dan Mullen and Kyle Trask and that offensive staff and everybody on the offense identified, whether it be in those couple weeks they were hit by COVID or something, whatever they had seen from this Georgia defense at some point in the season, maybe even going back to the Alabama game, that they could take advantage of. And it was Florida's running backs versus the Georgia linebackers, and they could not stop it. So probably one of the better coached and better scheme games I've seen from Dan Mullen in his time at Florida. It was, and it didn't matter who the running back was, Mark, whether it be Damian Pierce, whether it be Naquan Wright, whether it be Malik Davis, all three running backs had big days pass catching the ball out of the backfield. And it was something to behold, because it was just over and over and over again. A lot of big plays from it. Malik Davis with a 50-yard catch, or Naquan Wright with a 50-yard catch. Malik Davis with some nice catches along the sideline. And then to do it again, Mark, Kadarius Toney was held in check. Kyle Pitts went out midway through the second quarter when the game was tied 21-21, and you still went up, put up points after that. Now, I know the second half kind of Florida got conservative in a multitude of ways, play calling, mentally, whatever you want to call it. But it was 21-21 when Kyle Pitts went out, and Florida just went on a barrage in the second quarter. So you even did it without your two best offensive weapons for the most part, going crazy. So that was probably the big takeaway, was the way the offense scored with the wheel route, identifying something there, and doing it without your big playmakers out there.
And so Kyle Pitts, based on the concussion protocol, I believe I heard Dan Mullen say that he's doubtful?
Questionable. I
Then
doubt he
you
plays, though.
Pardon me?
I doubt he plays, though.
Then you got Jeremiah Moon also in that category, and the guard
offensive lineman Stuart Reese.
Yep. So those are the three injuries, fairly significant. Certainly Kyle Pitts, extremely significant for Florida, taking on Arkansas as a 16-point favorite against the Hogs. Any particular perspective on what's going on throughout the league with only 3 games going to be played out of 7?
Some good Halloween parties, I guess, Mark.
Yeah.
Is that where it's coming from? Maybe. I don't know. It is kind of weird. Of course, Florida had the hit, and look, it seems numbers wise, these teams weren't hit as hard as Florida was, but through all the contact tracing, it's kind of more playing it safe, more so than the other way around. Just kind of a team getting hit really, really hard. I think that's kind of what I've heard. Is not necessarily like the over, mid 20s to low 30s players Florida got hit with. It's 5 or 6 players, but through contact tracing, we have to hold these other players out as well. So, yeah, Mark, it's we knew it was coming at some point. It was inevitable that it was going to happen. And as I said, the timing of it, maybe it was the Halloween parties and all that kind of stuff that went on at a college campus. I know that was the LSU reasoning from what I heard. So it kind of just makes sense to maybe make that assumption. I will say I'm assuming here that to make the assumption that probably happened for the other schools as well. But yeah, it stinks. I think all the SEC games are at night now. They're not even shifting the games around there. So all the 3 SEC games that are taking place are going to be happening at the same time. So we'll see what comes of it. Like I said, it started with Sam Pittman, Arkansas's coach, and it didn't go any further with him for that squad. It stayed there with him. That's kind of weird to me. I don't know how the head coach gets it. It's confirmed twice, and nobody else is affected. That's kind of weird, but we'll take it. So Florida and Arkansas can play this weekend. But kind of odd there with everybody else getting hit pretty hard. And there's a head coach at another school, and it's just kind of limited to that one person. So it stinks we won't have SEC football this week. I know you're an Ohio State guy, and that game was in Maryland. The way they're playing right now, too, would have been a nice matchup to see if they could kind of continue their hot streak versus Ohio State and Justin Fields there. So a lot of good football. Mark, I did see the joke since Alabama and Ohio State's game got canceled. Can we just play Alabama and Ohio State sometime Saturday?
Ooh, wow. Wouldn't people want to see that?
Exactly. Come on, let's just go with it.
Yeah, we could have matched up a lot of good matchups throughout the week, I'm sure, but that would be the showstopper, no doubt about that. Maybe we'll see it a little bit later.
And Mark, one more thing before I go here.
Yeah.
And what happens with the SEC scheduling now? I mean, Florida and LSU were predicted or supposed to play December 12th. That was their tentative date there. Doesn't it make more sense for Alabama and LSU to play that day since it's a division game instead of Florida and LSU? I mean, I'm not trying to get Florida a break here before the SEC championship game. I mean, give them somebody else that day. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, you can make them play that day. It's just, it makes more sense if it's a division game or a cross division game to play the division game. If you're trying to make up one of those games, I know the SEC has pretty much said they're going to games that are not the SEC championship game and teams that can play will also play probably on December 19th as well. But you would think games that have to determine who's going to a division game that goes a lot further in determining who's going to play for a league championship would need to be played before the league championship. So it makes more sense to me that Alabama and LSU is figured out to play somewhere along the way before the SEC championship.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. We'll have to dive into that a little bit further as we go along. We will remind SEC fans, be thankful that you stepped on the field when you did. Of course, the ACC and the Big 12, it was a week or two prior. I think it was 2 weeks prior, but still, September 26th made sense. In the Big 10, the league that was going to get on the field the first to provide that scheduling flexibility, they are boxed into a corner, and the Pac-12 even more so. As they try to play a schedule. So at least there's some flexibility. And I find it interesting that you bring up that the SEC can go ahead and do a full slate of games or whatever games would need to be made up on championship weekend, much like what the Pac-12 and the Big 10 are actually scheduling just to fit in another week of football. Yeah. And I find that pretty interesting on the day that the conference championship game is going to be played. Just another weird, quirky scheduling snafu that we're going to have to deal with, but will be kind of fun at the same time.
Yeah, it'd be fun to see how serious those teams take it. I mean, the season's basically over with at that point. So, who knows how serious those teams will take it by then. Maybe a glorified spring game and a lot of young guys playing.
Absolutely. David Waters, Gators Breakdown. So go to your favorite audio platform, look up Gators Breakdown, keep it locked in here on YouTube as well. You can find him here. Again, it's Gators Breakdown. David, we always appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. Florida will be playing only one of 3 SEC games. And as David noted, the SEC is not shifting the schedule. I would think that would be a priority of the league just to get more eyeballs to the TV sets. Because what happens is that you naturally, as let's say a Florida fan, typically the second and third and fourth teams that you want to watch are Georgia and Tennessee and Alabama, or just the best games in the SEC. And if you don't have that opportunity, it's going to size down the TV ratings. I would think that they would have wanted to space out the 3 games that they have. That would be Florida, Arkansas, and I'm going to have to look at the schedule. I read off the 4 that were canceled. That leaves the other 6 teams to play. And again, 3 games, Florida, Arkansas, the Hogs a 16-point underdog. And we talked up that game this afternoon with Nick Walters from Pig Trail Nation. And we're going to release that preview coming up tomorrow here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Lon Phillip Sullivan joining us in just a few minutes from LSU Odyssey. We've got Kevin McGuffey from Last Word on College Football a little bit later, along with Stephen M. Smith of TouchdownAlabama.com and Brent Beard from First Coast News and College Sports Today. So I'm understanding in perusing the live chat that we had a little issue with YouTube that 2020 is full in effect still. So Mr. HD said it was down. So did Big Bubba Blue. And I quickly noted that there were only like 1 or 2 people online watching us, which is incredible in and of itself. So hopefully all of that got recorded and posts once the video posts. And so we don't lose that conversation with David. We just finished up our Florida State live show just a few minutes prior, and we had a strong 165 or so on the line for that. But hopefully people are getting YouTube back up and running. But no, as of just a few minutes ago, NS is telling us that he can't watch anything. David says down for the count, and all of the groupies are here. I'm sure it will be back soon. Luke telling us the same thing. So we've got all of 1 on the line. I don't know who has broken the YouTube code to be able to crack the code and come right through. But maybe some people are just simply letting us know that they're able to leave their comments, but aren't able to join us for the actual live stream. This is very odd. I'm going to call this up on my. I'm going to call this up on my phone and see what this looks like. Because we only have 2 watching at the time. Something went wrong. Tap to enter. And so it does look like we're out of luck right now. But people are still able to access the chat. Okay. Again, I have no idea if we're recording right now, because if YouTube's down live, then it may also be down for the recorded version. Very, very interesting. I think what we may end up doing is shutting this down right now. Hopefully this will record. And then we will go on from there. So I'm going to shut down the record. If anybody's watching right now, it seems like just everybody's in the chat. I'm going to shut this down, and then we'll come on right back as soon as we're able to go up and running on YouTube. Right here, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.